Great to be here. I'm the Chief Data Officer at Morningstar, and I'm going to be talking today about some of the things and the ways we think about really unlocking the potential and the value from AI. I think we're at an inflection point right now in the life cycle of this where we're starting to butt up against a bunch of challenges, practical challenges, leadership challenges. And I hope today for you all to walk away with kind of 3 different ways to think about the 3 different challenges, how to approach it, how to shift your mindset and lead your teams to unlock the full potential. So within my team, so I'm responsible for data analytics at Morningstar. What does that mean? So we're responsible for collecting, ingesting, organizing, enriching, and delivering all of Morningstar's data assets across the world. That includes public and private market investments, ETFs, alternatives, and really, I think, creating some of the world's finest data sets for understanding the global language of how investments can be understood by investors around the world. As part of that supply chain, what ultimately powers it are thousands of people and thousands of machine learning algorithms that we've been incrementally deploying over the last 10 years to realize more and more value and sophistication from AI. And the last 2 years have been particularly accelerating from a pace perspective as generative AI has come onto the scene. There was a study by Deloitte that came out, I think, 2 weeks ago, and they start to talk about moving from potential to performance. And what they were talking about is that a number of enterprises, pretty much all enterprises, have engaged in thousands of pilots, thrown a lot of dollars at really promising applications for AI, and yet we really have not seen a lot of those go into production and meet customer needs where they're at. Something on the order of about 10 to 20 to 30% of those applications have actually gone into production. So there's a question here. One of the biggest challenges enterprises, companies are facing is how do we scale these applications? So that's challenge number 1. How do we scale these things? Challenge number 2 that they talk about, a lot of executives and boards, and probably many of you feel that there's a risk element to this, whether it's reputational, regulatory, compliance, or governance-related risks, that we need to figure out how to pull that risk out of the equation so we can make these things successful. The third category of challenge that people are running up into is making data available for these AI applications in a way that can power them. Always hear the phrase garbage in, garbage out. Well, with these generative AI applications, if you put bad data in, you get bad behaviors out. And so those are some of the 3 challenges. I think for the most part, they're not technical in nature. I think they're actually, a lot of us here in this room, they're more leadership-oriented challenges. How do we actually enable our teams who know how to work in cloud infrastructure, who know how to deploy machine learning algorithms, how do we enable them to do that successfully in a way that's going to drive real business value? And so what I hope today to walk through are those 3 challenges a little bit in detail, some mindset shifts we can take as leaders to drive real value into those areas, and then 3 examples of success criteria you can measure and track progress against those challenges. So the first one, how do we scale generative AI? I think the mindset shift that we all need to take is we stop talking about the jobs that are going to be impacted by AI. We start thinking about the tasks that can be amplified or improved through the uses of these technologies. And I think so often, especially when we're working within our firms, within internally, the employees get a little scared, right? Like, how is this technology actually going to impact my life? Is my job going to go away? I'm a financial advisor. Is my job going to go away? I think we need to change that mindset, say, well, let's think from first principles. What's our production function here? And how can we actually take the tasks that need to get done to drive value, to deliver financial advice, to deliver data, whatever our business objective is, and think about where AI fits into that. There was I think in the 1970s, a couple MIT professors put together a rubric that really talked about the different ways, or 2 different ways to think about the impact of automation. And they broke tasks for each businesses into 2 different categories. They said there's improvisational and not improvisational tasks, and there's recurring and there's non-recurring tasks. And for decades, the domain of automation has been in the non-improvisational, recurring space. Things we can write the rules down for, things that happen a lot, that's the domain of automation. What's changed with generative AI is it become more human, has more human reasoning capabilities, it's more adaptable. The whole quadrant, all 4 quadrants have become available for AI to add a difference or make a difference. But that doesn't mean that we don't have a role to play. If you look around this room here, all of us are effectively supercomputers, right? We really are. And there's a quote from NASA in 1965 where they talk about humanity is still the all-purpose, portable computing machine, thinks in a nonlinear way that can be mass-produced by unskilled labor, right? It's like, so people still have a big role to play. We're part of the equation. If you think about Economics 101 textbook, you go back to your Cobb-Douglas functions, things like that, every production function has two inputs into it, labor and capital. We've just gotten a new technology to work with, and I encourage us to think more about the units of task to be done and not just the jobs to be replaced. So what does this look like at Morningstar? So for us, our number one objective is delivering great data to our customers. And so one of the big data sets that we tend to process are unstructured data. Last year I think we processed about 300 million PDF documents. And that's a lot of unstructured textual information to pull up and read, and we've got thousands of people that do that on behalf of our customers every day and make sense of that data. A different way to go about this that we're starting to explore and lean into pretty heavily is redesign the workflows and move our data analysts from data entry roles to data insight roles to data oversight roles. What does that look like? There's a workflow system where we'll have a document that comes in, inferences from an LLM that come out, and the analyst sits there and reviews and says, yes, 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 no, 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 I'm going to override that. And that's a way to rethink kind of the production function to get incremental value out of AI. The measurement system for this, and what we talk about with our strategy folks and our finance folks, is instead of looking at the total cost of production, we want to look at the marginal cost of production. On an incremental basis, are we getting a little bit better every day at the task at hand at the unit economics? And so I think that's one KPI that might be relevant for some of the things that you all are doing. The second category of challenge is, can we de-risk these applications? And I think the mindset shift we all need to go through on this one is moving more away from seeking the flashiest technologies, because those are going to find you, you're going to read about those in the news. And our role needs to be, how do we build customer trust with the applications that we're building? I think there's 4 different ways that we can do this, and it's really interesting. Even just last week, there was OpenAI's Strawberry model already kind of solved one of these problems, or at least is starting to solve one of these problems. But the 4 different ways I think we can focus on building customer trust is the same things what we do to build trust with each other. We explain our reasoning, right? We're appropriate, we're consistent with each other, and we provide evidence when necessary. We should ask the same of our algorithms just like our people. So from an explaining our reasoning point of view, there's this concept in LLMs of chain of thought. Before it just gives you an answer, it provides the context, the reasoning behind the answer. The Strawberry model that just came out last week does this off the shelf, and that's going to need to be increasingly fine-tuned for a lot of our use cases. But that's the type of thing that's going to build trust with your customers if you're focused on that piece of the technology. How do you explain how you got to the answer, not just give them the answer? How do you provide evidence, right? That's something that we do with each other, and we need to build trust. How do you cite your sources? Increasingly, these LLMs are doing that, especially in RAG setups with our own internal data, right? Where did you get the information from? And provide that transparency. I think that you can increasingly build trust with your customers from that point of view. How do you be more consistent or more accurate or more truthful with your answers? For us, what that looks like at Morningstar is we provide a ground truth analysis, 1,000-question test set across 7 categories. Every time we make a change, whether it's putting in a new LLM, making a change to the API, we run that against our ground truth test set to make sure we're preserving or ideally improving our accuracy, right? So have a good sense for accuracy. So, and then, shit, I forgot my 4th one, whatever. That's what happens when I have no slides. Appropriate, thank you. So being more appropriate. So there are certain guardrails that we need to install within our applications, all right? There's just sentences, tones, topics that are not suitable for every single application that are out there. And for us, what that looks like is we don't want to have our AI applications talking about politics, taking a partisan stance on sustainable issues, or providing financial advice in contexts where that's not warranted. So I think if you want to build customer trust, those are 4 different ways I think you can think about that, make that more actionable, and lead your organizations to get the most out of AI. From a KPI point of view, the thing I would lean into is accuracy, right? That's the most important thing. If you're working with vendors or solution providers, make sure you get a sense for the accuracy of the AI solutions that you're subscribing to if you're not building them yourselves. All right, the last one. How do we provide good data for these applications? I think we need to shift our mindset from treating data as the exhaust of our organizations to treating data as the oxygen of our organizations. Right? So what do I mean by that? I talk to so many companies who think about the data that are getting off of their CRMs or their Splunk logs, their API calls, whatever, and just like, oh yeah, this is exhaust. We got so much cool information, so much data, but they're not treating it the way that you would if you're treating it truly as the lifeblood of your organization. It's an afterthought. So what are some characteristics that you might look at to see a company that's treating their data as exhaust? Well, you probably would find their systems are siloed, their data assets don't link with each other, there's no data governance function, or perhaps the data governance standards are outdated, their data quality measurement is porous, there's no data product owner who's thinking about the future of the data roadmaps. You may not even know what data you have. You may not have a data catalog and have access to that. What kind of data do I got? No idea. You might even be subscribing to or bringing in data that's just questionable. And so I think moving to a mental mindset of this is actually the oxygen of our company, what's going to fuel our growth, is really important. Because let's face it, AI technologies are kind of like the premium cars. They require some premium gasoline to actually run and work well. Bad data goes in, bad behaviors come out. I'll go to some chief data officer conferences. We'll do a lot of that sort of stuff. And one of the things we're all talking about is what's the right operating model to really handle the scale and complexity and growth of the data that we all need to process to do our work. If you look at Morningstar's data assets, I'll kind of bucket into three different pieces. We got price data that we collect, portfolio data that we collect, and unstructured textual data that we collect, process, and turn it into all the statistics that many of you know and love. All those data sets are doubling every 2 to 3 years. So as we're thinking about the operating model that we need to have to make sense to handle, to manage this increasing volume and complexity, we need to be thinking 10x, 20x, what's the operating model that's going to allow me to scale to that level? So I think data governance, these functions are so important to get right. The model that we're gravitating to, and I think a lot of data companies and people that are serious about data are gravitating to, is called a data mesh operating model. It's a decentralized ownership and governance structure that really maximizes the agility and innovation of individual data domain teams and allows those data domain teams to be empowered with the tools and technologies they need to drive increased quality and increased scale and be more resilient to disruptions, either in the data assets that they collect and maintain or in the technology that they're using. So highly encourage folks to check that out, the data mesh operating model, if that's of interest. So there are three main challenges I see when it comes to taking full advantage of AI. We talked about, can we scale it? I think if we shift our mindset, away from just focusing on, can we scale? I think if we shift our mindset away from just focusing on the jobs to be done to the tasks that need to be done, we're going to stand a better chance of finding the right operating model to scale. Can we de-risk it? I think if we shift our mindset away from focusing on the flashiest technologies towards looking to how do we actually build customer trust with these applications, we're going to stand a good chance to de-risk our solutions here. And finally, can we provide it with good data, right? And I think if we focus more on treating data as the oxygen of our companies, not as the exhaust, we're going to stand a good chance to unlock the value for AI for all of our organizations. So hopefully that was helpful for you. We're going to be continuing the conversation over at the Morningstar booth. I'll be there. Our team will be there. We'll have ice cream. If you want to make yourself a sundae, feel free to come by. Hope you're enjoying the conference, and enjoy. Talk to you soon.